welcome to the Crafted Conversation with me, Marcus Sharrod, where we give consideration to the art of performance and development in the classroom or instructional environment on the coaching field for sports coaches, and consider a culture of performance where conversations will explore anything from instructional methods, teaching and learning, which is informed by educational and cognitive psychology, motivation theory, cognitive biases, designing programs of learning, the use of feedback and assessment, and also consider group dynamics and performance as well as individual performance. None of this can be explored without the lens of identity and storytelling and generating a sense of belonging within the cultural performance in which we exist. So, without further ado, we continue with today's crafted conversation. Welcome back to the Crafted Conversation. I'm here today with Chris Dossett, a colleague of mine and a little bit of a legend, dare I say, of the school sport sector. Chris has had a colourful and varied career, starting off in the state sector and then before moving into a director of sport role at Pangbourne College, Portsmouth Grammar School, Uppingham, and finishing his career as a director of sport at Solihull School. Chris now acts as chair of PADSIS, the Professional Association of Directors of Sport in Schools, which is a mouthful. And in that role, Chris tries to essentially be a support mechanism for directors of sport and brings his range of experience, knowledge, expertise and prowess to be able to, in his own words, try and make that role, that varied and difficult role in the independent, easier and more enjoyable for those individuals. Alongside this, Chris has just taken up a role as a performance lifestyle advisor to elite athletes on the dual career pathway at Loughborough University, where he studied himself. Chris, we're very lucky to have you here today. We're going to be exploring through those range of experiences that you have and your current role that is putting you right at the forefront, really, of what's going on in the world of independent school sport. We're going to explore both leadership and learning in those environments. Chris, welcome along.
Thanks, Marcus. Thanks for having me, and thanks for the introduction. I really enjoyed having you on my sort of Tuesday takeaway video, something that I do every week for directors of sport. So thanks so much for having me on. Looking forward to the conversation.
And just a nod to the Crafted Conversation partner, Keynote Education. Keynote have, as I always say, a range of courses that you can sign up to, both online and in person, around leadership, around aspiring to leadership in schools, but also a particular nod to their conference program, at which Chris and I will be speaking together on Friday, the 18th of October. This podcast is going to go out the week before that and act as a part one. And I'm really excited that we're going to do a live conversation on the day, having both delivered keynote speeches in the morning. We're then going to continue this particular conversation live at the event. So very much looking forward to seeing people there. Keynoteeducational.co.uk. Go along and have a look at the range of courses on offer for all subjects, and the 6 or 7 conferences, anything from leadership in physical education to the application of artificial intelligence, all coming up this term. So, Chris, this is I am the crafted concept. This is the crafted conversation. And we always start by asking guests, what is your craft?
I thought about this, and I think genuinely, I love sport. I love all aspects of sport, and I love teaching. I wanted to be a PE teacher since I was 10 years old. My parents tried to dissuade me a little bit, and I always wanted to go to Loughborough University. So I genuinely feel that I've lived the dream for the last 50 odd years. I've bounded out of bed to, teach lessons, leave my department, etc. And I think I'm the eternal optimist, and I'm always mega enthusiastic. and I hope that comes across when I'm both teaching and when I'm, leading my department. And I suppose in my role now as chair of PADSIS, it's, if you like, passing on that, optimism and enthusiasm to help and support directors of sport in any way I can, because it is a brilliant job. It's a fantastic job, and it is becoming more and more onerous, maybe. But as I say, my mission to myself is, how can I support directors of sport so I can make their lives easier, but continue to make that job fun and enjoyable, because that's what it should be. We're teaching children to play games, and we're very lucky to be able to do that.
In conversations that you and I have had, I know this is something that you've been aware of throughout your career, and that you're really being challenged by and thinking about now, is what is the actual purpose of sport in school? What is the mission?
Genuinely, I think the mission is very simple. Sport should be fun and enjoyable for every single pupil. Full stop. And now, that can sound soft and airy-fairy, but fun and enjoyable is different for different people. You might have a year 7 girl who's doing a forward roll for the first time in her life. That's an amazing achievement, and it's a day a lot of us will remember. It might be, you might have a badminton player in year 10 that wants to play in the Olympics, when he's older. Fun and enjoyable is different for different people. When I was at school, I used to love fitness, and I could be flogged up and down all day long, be on my knees, breathing mega heavily, and I used to love that. For other people, that would be hell. So it's up to us to find the fun and enjoyable for everybody, because at the end of the day, that's what sport was made for, to be fun and enjoyable. It's a recreation, and if we make it fun and enjoyable, our children are going to carry on taking part in physical activity into later life. And that's the biggest win for all of us. If our children are still physically active when they're 25, 45, 90 odd, my dad's 80 this year, still plays golf twice a week. That's our true, vocation, I think, to, whether you're doing a park run, whether you're riding your bike, whether you're playing netball for your local 5th team, or you're the treasurer of the hockey club, to get still involved in sport and all those physical, social, mental benefits it brings. That's what a sports program should be in my eyes.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. So based on your current role at PADSIS and the amazing opportunity that you've got, and anyone that follows you on LinkedIn will see just how regularly you are out there visiting schools, meeting directors of sport, spending time in their environment. How would you summarize, in the time you've been in that role, environments that are able to inculcate those things that you've just described as the mission best? And I suppose, to take that question out a little bit further, how would you summarize their approaches in developing the learning environment, both for the staff and the pupils, that facilitate delivering that mission?
Yeah, I think there's definitely been a shift in the last 10 years. COVID probably helped. I think schools are a lot more collaborative now, and a lot more friendly, if you like. There's no such, there are some rivals, if you like, but at the end of the day, we're all teaching and coaching children. So I think that collaborative nature and sharing ideas has been really, really good. The schools that I go into, directors of sport, are run off their feet, and the best ones are the ones that are genuinely empowering their heads of sport and their staff to flourish, and mentoring them and backing them. That you might make a few mistakes on the way. We've all been there, but if you've got that psychologically safe environment, if you like, people are willing to share ideas, take a few risks. And I think the irony is, when you are confident and you're supported well, the risks normally come off. And I think that's all also with the learning with the children. I see a lot more in schools. At Solihull, for instance, we had a system of people first, people last. So whenever there was a huddle, a team talk, a discussion in a lesson, the pupils would always speak first. We would then put our bit in, and they would speak last. So it was their learning, because back in the day, it was very much halftime team talk would be a coach speak for 10 minutes, the kids would be glassy eyed, wouldn't remember any of it. And, it was sometimes it was the coach's game, whereas now more and more it is the children's game, and that's what it should be. What they want to get out of their game today or their lesson today, we should be supporting. And I think that's very healthy, because there's a better environment in schools where you can challenge pupils, but they see the challenge as a good thing. It's not personal. It's, I reckon you could do this. I reckon you're good enough to do this. So this is why I'm giving you this feedback. And instead of feedback being seen all the time as a criticism, my coach used to say to me, feedback's a gift. It's there to make you better. And I think those mechanisms of feedback are getting better, and I think both within departments and to children, leaders are becoming more compassionate. I've spoken recently to Lawrence Halstead at the True Athlete Project, and I recently read Serena Wiegmann's autobiography, and I think that idea of more compassionate leadership, more caring about the person and the individual, is better in the long run. And these myths about compassion, that self-compassion's soft or undermines motivation or is hard to improve yourself or is self-indulgent and all those sort of things, it's just not true. I think a confident athlete or teacher who is authentic and can be themselves is likely to be the best performer or the best teacher. The girl who's absolutely scared witless that, if she misses this shot in netball, her teammates are going to shout at her, coach is going to shout at her, we might lose the game, is unlikely to get that shot. But the girl who is relaxed, knows her coach will actually, clap her for trying a shot from the edge of the circle, and well done you for risking it. It's more likely to succeed. And I think I'm seeing that environment more and more in schools, and it's brilliant, and a lot more smiles and faces when kids are playing sport. And I think probably the other thing I would say is the improvement of coaching across the ability and the gender level. There's at Magdalen yesterday I saw a senior badminton lesson, and it was brilliant. There were lots of 20 plus kids on court, the coaches engaged, the kids were all playing a game of badminton. I know that sounds sad. They're not just standing there pit-patting to each other. They're trying to drop shot. They're trying to clear. They're trying to move their opponent around. They missed a few. They got a few. Whereas 15 years ago, Neil Rollins always used to say, who puts the bad into badminton? You go into a senior badminton lesson, there's one member of staff on a bench on their laptop doing their marking, and the other one's leaning against the door, completely disengaged with the lesson. And you see that less and less now, and that I think is very healthy.
And that's a nice way to go into my next question, actually, which would be, in your experience then, in your more recent experience, let's say, of going in and observing these environments, in a literal sense, can you give listeners an idea of what is happening at a sort of design level, learning design level, be that curriculum, be that developing kind of age group specific learnings through a sport program? And I mean kind of sport rather than PE there.
Yeah.
What do you observe? You mentioned delegation from directors of sport to heads of sport. What are you observing in a really literal sense that you think captures how those things can be achieved in the very best examples that you've come across?
I think some of the best examples are when instead of heads of sport working in silos, and they're only, let's say I'm a head of hockey, and all I'm interested in at the weekend is how the hockey teams get on. But in the best schools, genuinely, the head of badminton is sitting down with the head of swimming and the head of hockey, and they're sharing ideas of how they develop skills, how they develop leadership, how they develop their curriculum. And on a Monday morning when they come in, there's the head of hockey says, I saw the netball girls had a great game against so and so at the weekend. And again, within the department, there's that collaborative. So it's an overall purpose. It's a purpose of the sport department. So it's not, Marlborough College rugby, Marlborough College netball, Marlborough College netball, tennis, whatever. It's Marlborough College sport, and everyone's singing from the same page. And of course, there's deviations to allow for individual expertise and variation, but the philosophy and the purpose and the teaching styles are very similar, and there might be a few sort of non-negotiables that are happening in every sport. So it might be that every pupil's active within 30 seconds of the start of the lesson, for argument's sake. Or it might be, as I said, at Solihull, it's pupil first, pupil last, that whenever we get the pupils to engage. It might be that we ban running a lap to warm up. Whatever it may be, there's greater sharing of ideas, and that's got to be healthy. And if we look at elite sport and look at someone, let's say like Dave Brailsford, where he obviously coined this frame, marginal gains, and now he's working at Manchester United. Excellence is a philosophy, if you like. It's not just you can be a great coach, full stop. And I've met some people who maybe have never taught a lacrosse lesson in their life, but can teach lacrosse really well because they're great teachers and they understand the concepts of an invasion game, for example. So that's probably a bit of a roundabout way of answering that, but they're the best schools that when you walk into an environment and you just they've got a great culture there. There's a bit of banter between the staff. They're sharing ideas. They've got each other's backs. They're proactive. They're not reactive. Like yesterday in this department meeting at Magdalen, the head of rowing would be asking something to the head of football, and that I think that's a really cool environment, and one I always love to work in, where you are challenged. Why are you doing that? Have you thought about it doing this way? And not because someone's trying to get one up on you, but they're genuinely trying to help you and make you better. And if we can all take that on board, then you're in a great place.
Yeah, and actually at a sort of structural level, if we remove the head of football, head of rowing, as you described there, we're talking about people who are coaches, and to my mind, and I always say this, coaches are teachers, because teachers impart learning, and that's the role of a coach. You're just agreed. not imparting learning in a traditional core curriculum sense. You're imparting it in a motor skill, competency, tactical, technical sense. So with that in mind, what are the key skills in coaching that you think are pertinent right now?
Listening, and I think particularly to younger children, to give them that opportunity to voice their ideas. And younger children are hugely creative. And I remember a previous school, we had a Dutch hockey coach that said the head coach of the Dutch national team would always go to the under 14 Dutch national trials, because there'll be some boy or girl there who's trying some new skill that as an adult you'd probably be too pragmatic or nervous to try, and he'd pick that up and then he'd bring it back to the seniors. So you've got to give pupils that opportunity to try things. And if a risk is a risk, if it comes off, you praise it. If it doesn't come off, you praise it. You can't just because in a rugby match I throw the ball through my legs and the winger scores a try and everyone goes, oh, great piece of play, and then next week I throw the ball through my legs and he knocks it on, everyone says, what are you doing? You shouldn't be taking that. You got to praise the risk. And I think that's what the best coaches do. I'm just sort of flicking back in my head, and I can remember two brilliant coaches I worked with. One was Alex Hensherwood, who was the rowing coach at Pangbourne College, and he's now at Eton College. He just had a way with the boys. He could motivate them. He knew them really, really well. And I'm sure if Alex coached anything, he'd be good at. And the other one is a guy called Kevin Johnson at Uppingham, who unfortunately is very ill at the moment. But you know what? Kevin was such a brilliant teacher. He knew his children. He was an old school PE teacher. He was brilliant at badminton. He's brilliant at squash. He's a scratch golfer. He's a really good PE teacher, could teach across a range of activities. He could coach cricket, hockey, rugby, and he was calm, he was assured. The pupils knew that he was batting for them, and then you're going to get the best out of your kids, and also then younger staff coming through. And I was speaking to a younger member of staff yesterday who worked with Kevin, and she learned so much from that calm but enthusiastic demeanor, and that the way that, if you build relationships with pupils, so what makes them tick, that's when hopefully the magic's going to happen, and they know that you're there for them and to help them get better.
Yeah, that's such an interesting point, isn't it? And again, I started the question by talking about a structural level, but actually, the structural level here is a relationship one.
Yeah.
That you've just described. The lovely anecdotes you've given are based around feelings of safety and expression.
Yeah.
Does this person make me feel safe in who I am and where I am, and give me the ability to go and express myself?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's fascinating, isn't it? And actually, the world of sport in general at a professional level, and so it's kind of trickled down through the years, essentially removes that expression for the pragmatism.
Yeah.
That would certainly be. I look back to my time in football, and that's definitely a feeling that I had. And yet you look at those most aesthetic individuals that you see on a sports field, be it on the thirds pitch or when I'm watching Match of the Day, and it is those that just seem to feel safe enough to go and express themselves.
Yeah. And everybody talks about it, don't they? Like you say, let's say it's a third-team hockey player, and you're in a boarding school, and everyone goes, "Did you see that goal that Johnny scored? Did you hear about that? Or that's the exciting bit, isn't it?" And I think the other thing I was just reflecting there, that idea of belonging, and when you're in a school, you want to belong to that school. And the other thing that I see actually is in schools where belonging is really good, all the kids are proud to wear the kit. Everyone's wearing the same kit. There's nobody moaning about because this kid's wearing grey socks or the wrong shorts, or you watch the first team and the star players wearing a different pair of socks to everyone else and that sort of thing. Whereas you go into a school with a good culture where people feel like they belong. They want to wear the kit. They're proud to wear the kit, and it doesn't matter if you're in the the F team, netball team, the badminton group, the golf team, or whatever. You're wearing that school's colours, and nobody has to nag you about it. You're doing it because you're proud, and that's the culture that your school and your sports department has created, and that's again a special thing and takes a bit of time.
Yeah, and completely applicable to any performance environment, right?
Yeah.
You take that sense of belonging to something bigger than just yourself, put that into a corporate world, put that into your department, put that wherever, and it works.
Well, you know what? I think that's a really good point. One of the things we were learning last week with the Loughborough Mentoring Scheme was about preparing graduates for employment. And we had someone in from a company called AdVictor, and he was saying that most employers nowadays, they're looking for a type of person. His words were they are agnostic to what their degree is or what A-levels they took. And of course, what sports people have in spades, and this is what a lot of sports people don't realise, is they're great as working as part of a team. They're great working to a deadline. They're good goal setters. They're persistent. They're resilient. They're normally optimistic. All these characteristics that we teach through sport, that's the skills we're giving our children. And I read something the other day from the World Economic Forum of the skills businesses will need in 2027. And I think the top 10, one was AI and data, but I think the other 10 could all be applied to sport. And I think, again, when we consider sport, we need to look at the benefits that we are enabling children. It
Mm.
doesn't matter what level they're playing at, so I've got it here actually. So, analytical thinking, number one,
Hmm.
creative thinking, leadership and social influence, resilience, flexibility, agility, curiosity, motivation and self-awareness, empathy and active listening. I mean, any good sports person has those skills, and we are
Mm.
teaching these pupils those skills through sport, and we need to make sure that they know, our staff know, other staff know, and
Mm.
their parents know that those skills are gold to employers.
Mm.
um, and that's important. We shouldn't shy away from that.
On the whole, how deliberate are school sport departments in foregrounding that, in
Yeah,
actually recognizing that?
I think a lot of us take it for granted. And they were saying at Loughborough, you tell these elite athletes that these are the skills that they have, and this is what they should be putting in their CV and their letter. They take these things for granted, and I sometimes think that we as sports staff take these things for granted. And whether you're going to whether your school values, you could bet most school values are something around that, whether you make that explicit when you're teaching, whether you say, right, we're teaching basketball for this half term, but actually we're going to teach leadership, and we're going to
Mm.
use basketball as the vehicle to teach
Mm.
leadership, or we're teaching teamwork today, and listening skills, and we're going to do that in our swimming lesson. So you can use a characteristic, and then use sport as a vehicle for it, or it can be it happens by as we're teaching. But I do think when you get those, if you like, teachable moments where you can praise a child for taking a risk and it not coming off, or
Mm.
I'm looking at empathy there, and I can remember a boy at Solihull, year 7, Yogi, his name was. Year 7 games on a Friday afternoon, and I'd had a bad week. I was tired. I was a little bit grumpy, and they're my team, and normally I'm loving it. And 15 minutes into the lesson, Yogi says to me, "Are you all right today, sir? You seem a bit down." And I thought, oh my days. I said, Yogi, you know
That's
what? That's
incredible.
one of the, it is. That's one of the nicest things and bravest things anyone's ever said to me. And you know what? I'm going to kick myself out of it now. And now I'm on it. And
Yeah,
I
yeah, yeah.
thought that was genuinely incredible that boy was
Mm.
able to say that to me, and I would hope that I'd create that environment where he felt safe enough to say it. But I made sure in front of the whole group that I made them all know that I thought that was really kind of him to tell me, and really brave. And that even today still makes me feel good that he
Mm.
said that to me. That was brilliant. And so those skills are important, and of
Mm.
course we want to do well competitively, but most of our children are not going to be playing competitive rugby, hockey, netball, cricket when they're older. I hope they're all physically active, where they're doing park run or
Mm.
riding their bike on Strava, but they are all going to be working in business, or they're going to be a husband or a wife or a father or a mother, and those skills are important in life, I think, to
Mm.
make the world a better place. And
Mm.
ideally, that's our higher purpose as educators, isn't it? That we send our children away from school as good people.
Yeah.
And if they happen to be good at football, and they're brilliant at literature or art or drama or history, then that's obviously brilliant. But surely that's got to be our primary objective, to make sure we're turning out good citizens, good people.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. My to my mind there, as you're responding, I was thinking of that kind of the characteristic approach, and
Yeah,
foregrounding some of those things as they appear in our professional worlds. And something I'm working really hard on this year, or actually in recent times, in my classroom practice, is moving the children away from that outcome focused, especially in some sort of give back scenario. So you've got some
yeah,
assessment that you're giving back,
yeah,
and that it's natural for the kids, particularly teenagers, to see the percentage or see the letter or the number that's ascribed to
Yep.
it, and that's either a success or a fail right there. And in either way, you've lost them. They
Yeah.
either go brilliant, happy with that,
Yeah.
put that away, or the world's ending, I'm in a
Yep.
black hole, it's not
Yep.
what I wanted. And it's it's a much bigger discussion, isn't it, about how we try and battle against that, and yet everything in education is built towards outcome,
Yeah.
grades,
Yeah.
UCAS predictions, etc. But in saying what has happened there is an opportunity. You have an opportunity now to actively do something with
Yeah.
that feedback, and I've designed a task around that. Let's go for it.
Yeah.
And it just made me think of the number of ways actually that from a classroom perspective, I've found the more recent proliferation of that kind of research-led approaches and ways in which we can actually, how does learning work?
Yeah.
How do we make learning work in a classroom? Because it's
Yeah.
not a passive process,
Yeah.
and it takes real cognizance to
Yeah.
think, how are we going to make this learning work? And I just wondered, in what ways can on the grass, on the court, benefit from some of those things that we're seeing
Yeah.
more and more in the classroom?
And I think you've made a really important point there. The idea of learning is what we are actually teaching our children. So someone say to me, what's the point of learning a quadratic equation? Well, you might never use that quadratic equation, but you've gone through a process where you've had to work something out.
Mm.
And I think it's a little bit like sport. When you play a sport you're not familiar with, so let's say you're a brilliant footballer and you're learning to play hockey, you've got to go through phases where you do struggle, and in life there is struggle. How do you learn? What are your strategies to get out of that struggle? And I think the thing with sport is a lot of sports cultures, they teach us that we need to be sad or we need to suffer when we lose. If I've lost a rugby, football, netball match, I need to be in the change room in tears afterwards, or I need to be in a sulk, or I need, because society says you don't care. If you're smiling after a game you've won, you don't care. And that's wrong. And I think, again, with the emergence of more and more female sport, I think that is really helping. I watch a lot of women's sport, and at the weekend there was some fantastic women's sport on netball, rugby, the America's Cup, and it seems to me that the culture in a lot of women's sport is that one of enjoyment. I saw, I was watching the Roses play New Zealand on Sunday morning, and Beth Compton, who plays wing defence for England, she is
Hmm.
always smiling, win, lose or draw. So that's an environment that's contagious.
Yeah.
And I know a lot of the women's teams do this. They're still on the ground an hour after kickoff, signing autographs, win, lose or draw again, and realizing that actually they've got a higher purpose here, and it's to inspire all these boys and girls to play sport. And I like the way that that's moving. Some of the best games I've played in my life, some of the best performances I've put in, I've lost. But they were brilliant games. But then, you win a game 50-0. Well, you know what? I've not been challenged. It's not particularly enjoyable. The other teams hated it as well. Let's, those really close games where with 10 minutes to go, you don't know who's going to win. They're the situations I want to be in, to challenge myself and to challenge my athletes. And I think they're the environments we should be striving for and enjoying. And as you say, you're playing a game of sport with your friends against a load of like-minded others who are trying to do the same thing. As long as, like you say, your performance is good, your process is good, you've worked hard, you've enjoyed it, then smile, enjoy it. It doesn't have to be about winning and losing, especially at school sport. There's not an under-13 World Cup for netball. It's that's what we should be doing. Even at the elite level, the best teams are the ones that are having fun, that are high-fiving each other and slapping each other on the bum when they score a goal and that sort of thing.
Yeah. Again, it's really interesting. Every single time through this conversation that we've explored learning design kind of outcomes, we've come back to this sense of actually we're not even really talking about motor skill competency. We're talking about feelings, characteristics,
Yeah.
because perhaps that might be due to the fact that if those feelings, emotions, positive approaches to the way that you feel in a physical activity environment, be that because of the success, or be that because you enjoy trying to solve a problem, or
Yeah.
you enjoy the ability to practice resilience because you fail,
Yeah.
that could be the thing that nods you towards that lifelong participation in physical
Yeah.
activity.
Yeah.
So I'll finish then by asking, what is most important? Is it being really deliberate in creating those opportunities and foregrounding, even speaking to the pupils about those feelings? Is it skill specific, so within like domain specific, teaching certain skills in certain sports, or is it developing a level of movement competency and athleticism that can be applied to whatever sporting physical activity domain?
Well, let's face it, in the utopian world, it's all of those, isn't it? I mean, as a
Yeah.
teacher, that's what you are. It's not one or the other. It's all of those things. I mean, let's face it. I go to a park run on a Saturday morning. The first 30 people along the line are like bounding in, and they're running on the balls of their feet. Their arms are pumping. They're running tall. You see the last 30, they're flat-footed. You can hear them coming a mile off. Their arms are down by their side. Why has nobody taught them to run properly? Or catch properly or throw properly, because we know as parents, the number of times I've been out in my garden playing thrown and catch with my girls, literally just for fun, or on the beach. But
Yeah.
those physical competencies are really, really important. So is teaching skills, because let's face it, if you're a rugby player and you can do a drop kick from the half, not from the half, from the 22, or you're a hockey player and you can do a drag flick, or you're basketball and you get a 3-pointer for the first time, they're all brilliant skills. But then I think, going back to the human element and the as you say, the fun and enjoyment bit, that's going to contribute to all of those, because if I'm having fun and enjoyment, I'm going to stay out there practicing that 3-pointer for hours, just because I'm trying to master a skill, because I'm learning something. No one's watching. I'm in the gym all by myself. All I want to do is get that 3-pointer, or I might be on the putting green trying to putt a 50-foot putt or whatever. No one's watching. I'm just doing it for me, because I want to challenge myself. I want to have that skill mastery. I'm not going to get a prize for it. No one's going to pat me on the back for it. It's just, that's what I like doing, and what people
Yeah.
like doing. They like to master things, don't they?
Yeah. But mastery requires process, and therefore multiple failures, opportunity to practice resilience, to try hard, to goal set,
Yeah.
to show some sort of intent and intensity towards a
Yeah, yeah,
goal.
yeah, yeah.
We're coming back to those similar themes, aren't we?
Yeah, deliberate practice.
Yeah.
But at one level, deliberate practice is sometimes relevant. Let's say I'm playing spike ball in the back garden with my children. We're just having fun. We're just
Yeah.
playing and we're working
Yeah.
out ourselves. Whereas on the other hand, if I want to be an international spike ball player, then I might do a bit more deliberate practice. But it
Yeah.
depends what I want, or what you want, or what that child wants. And, that's what we've got to cater for, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And you know what? If there's one message that I would give to listeners, to those that have the wonderful opportunity to design learning and curriculum around these things that we're discussing today, it would be to be more deliberate at what your intent is.
Yeah.
I feel like naturally Ofsted have taken the word intent, and now it comes with the natural connotations that come with Ofsted. But intent is so valuable. That game
Yeah.
of spike ball in the
Yeah.
garden with your children, I would argue that your intent there is connection. It's
Yeah.
all connection. It's all fun. It's
Yeah.
all holistic human development. Whereas if it's your international spike ball session, then your
Yeah.
intent's totally different. But knowing your intention lens
Yeah.
is absolutely vital. And your intention lens for year 7 games is going to be different to your intention for the sixth form. and actually your intention for the performance sixth form is totally different to the recreational.
Somebody said this to me the other day, and I thought it's a really good point, that when you are running a sports session, most children will think that you are judging them, that you are, for picking the team. So therefore, be deliberate and say, you know what I'm looking for today is who's the best risk taker. And so, like I say, your intent today is to allow them to take risks. Right, today what I'm looking for is who can be the best teammate. Okay, or whatever your intent means. And as you say, make it deliberate. Make them know that you're looking for them to take risks, and every time they take a risk, you're going to praise them for it. And so are their teammates, because you know what? Teacher said to me, we're taking risks today, so I'm going to try something I've never tried before. And then when I try it, the teacher's actually praising me for taking the risk. The outcome's irrelevant. And I think you're right. If we are more deliberate about, who's the most optimistic today, who's the most tenacious today, who can be the most compassionate, who can be the most energetic, all those sort of things, you can be deliberate about those. And they are skills that are going to do you well in life. So I think we definitely can be more deliberate in at making sure our children, our staff and our parents know that these are characteristics and values that we think are important.
Yeah. And I think in doing so, you've got the difference between an accidentally sort of naturally progressive learning design and curriculum that just manages to make the most of all the wonderful features of sport and physical activity versus an outstanding one that is telling the children and the staff and developing motivation around being really clear that these are the things that we're looking to achieve.
Agreed.
Chris, so thanks so much for your time.
Yeah, it's good. I enjoyed that. Thank you very much.
Your expertise, your energy, enthusiasm, optimism is absolutely infectious. And to have the sector is lucky to have someone like you in the role that you're in.
Thank you very much, Marcus. That's very kind of you.
Top man. Thanks a lot. As ever, feel free to shout me up. My socials are linked into the show notes at the bottom. You can find me on LinkedIn as Marcus Sharrod. You can find me on Instagram at The Crafted Concept, or just drop me an email straight in, marcus@thecraftedconcept.co.uk. Would love to hear about how I might be able to support your performance environment. Until next time.